Today we're pitching together two European Supermini heavyweights, both in their second generation models, the Renault 5 and the Ford Fiesta. Both launched in the 1970s, it's a huge sales success. What are they like today? Well, we've got these two 1.4 petrol 4-cylinder models to compare, and we'll find out what they're like.
But first, our friends at Lancaster Insurance are running monthly giveaways. You can win all sorts, from experience days to tools, restaurant vouchers and tech. So click the link below at the end of the video to enter their latest competition.
As we said, this is the Supercinq, the second generation Renault 5, but the Renault 5 was one of the original European Superminis.
Came out in 1972, right?
Renault 5 was one of that first generation, one of the first to sell in really big numbers all around Europe.
So of course the Mark 1 comes out in 72 and runs till about 86 when it's then replaced by this.
Which is actually a completely different car underneath.
Yes,
it's not a facelift.
It looks very similar,
yeah,
doesn't it?
They knew that the original Renault 5 looks at one of its strongest aspects. That classic 70s French styling, functional, but it's got that strange style, like that straight back with the inset tail lights and things. Very much kept to that with the second generation one, but underneath it's a completely new platform. Transverse engine, while the original one's a longitudinal engine.
Longer, taller, wider than the original car, and consequently it's actually more spacious inside compared to the Fiesta that we're
There is a lot of room in here, a couple of inches of headroom there, and that's it's good for a small car.
And it's got the 1.4 engine, about 70 horsepower.
The days when a Supermini was under a ton and had 70 horsepower.
It actually feels plenty nippy, doesn't it? It's actually really quite...
Doesn't seem to be struggling for
light and agile.
But it seems to be making perfectly nice progress. And how is it going around this roundabout?
Yeah, it's fine. It all feels very smooth, like probably typically French. The ride is very soft and cross-setting, so the ride over this slightly rutted A road here is pretty decent.
Yeah, you can feel it. You can feel it. It's just they get very French, slightly bobbing up and down. It's got a little bit of roll, probably more than a sort of German or British Supermini of the same era would have. That's the French for you, and the result is the ride is very, very comfy. I'm
staring at this lovely GT Turbo 3-spoke steering wheel, which is standard on the Monaco. The steering's really light. I love all the controls are close to hand. I love these very typically Renault dials from the 80s that are very similar in style to the ones that were being on the Renault 9 and the 11 at the time.
It's conventional. This isn't as weird as a Citroen, which would be having the radio down here and weird spinny drum dials and things, but it's got that French style to it, that sweeping look, and it goes with the outside, which is conventional but just distinctive. You wouldn't see a Renault 5 coming down the road towards you and mistake it for anything else.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's sort of that perfect blend of conventional, like it's not intimidating to look or drive or use any of the controls, but it's got a certain Gallic flair to it, which I really like. This being a high-spec Monaco edition, we've got the Connolly leather, we've got electric windows, got a rev counter, it's got 3 gauges, I'm not sure the one of them was working. It's just beautiful, and actually the engine's really smooth.
It is.
In real world terms, this 1.4 is perfectly sufficient.
I think when it comes to small French cars, too much power is almost a bad thing. I think like a modernised Citroen 2 CV, which obviously I'm a big fan of.
It's funny how cars like this get under your skin though, isn't it? Because there's nothing necessarily remarkable about it.
No.
It's just a character.
It had such character, and it was so engaging, and even in the early 2000s it felt so much more classic than a modern car. Yet, as you say, entirely unintimidating, and they're so easy to work on. Like, torsion bars at the back, so you're not going to run out with any
pretty standard McPherson suspension up front as well.
French flair, but fundamentally the standard. So a brilliant classic and a very good Supermini, as we're proving.
The Supercinq came out initially as a 3-door, and the 5-door did come about a year or so later, but that was actually a slightly longer wheelbase, I believe, to give it proper rear doors and proper rear access. And of course the Mark II Fiesta didn't come as a 5-door.
And so now we're getting towards the blue oval shaped elephant in the room.
I've always liked a blue oval, exactly.
I think we need to get behind the wheel of the Fiesta, take that for a drive and find out why it was so popular.
Let's go back and drive our lovely Mark II 1.4S example.
Yes.
Can't wait. So Jack, this is a bit of a strange scenario now, because as a Ford fan, I find myself sitting in the passenger seat waiting for you, the French car fan, to espouse the benefits of the blue oval.
Any personal experiences and memories with the Mark II?
Yeah, well, I've owned 2 of them.
That's pretty personal.
Both gear model. The gear, the XR2, and the sort of lukewarm 1.4S model had the venter vents and these slightly chunkier ventilation controls and the high-up radio, which I kind of personally loved all of that stuff.
I'm not generally a blue oval person, but there's a case to be made for the Mark II Fiesta. So let's start laying out some ground. The original Fiesta, 1977, so relatively a latecomer to the Supermini world, but probably ended up being the definitive Supermini in that generation. Although there was nothing particularly special or innovative about the Fiesta when it came out, it just ticked every box that people could want.
Well, it's probably typical Ford, right?
Yeah.
They've been busy making notes about what
Exactly.
all the others have been doing. The right price with all the right models to suit all budgets and all tastes.
Exactly, and then they just repeated that with the Mark II. The Fiesta is selling well. We need to get every pound we can out of all our investment in the platform, the engine, and Valencia factory to build the thing, which was all brand new. And so the only real change was slightly reprofiling the front end to fit the taller CVH engine with its lean burn technology. Mark II, business as usual, just a mild tweak. Did the job that Ford wanted. It made the money, it sold well. It was Britain's best-selling Supermini and the second best-selling car in the country, behind only the Escort. So if the ultimate accolade for a car is that people buy it, tick in the Fiesta's favour, which the Renault 5 did not do in the UK, although, as we said, it sold very well in France.
Ironically, the Renault 5 did sell well post-1990s, just the campus model.
Yes.
We didn't get the Twingo, but what Ford did with their Mark II was just refine the strengths of the Mark I, market it beautifully. This is a case in point.
Yes.
This has got the 1.4S, so this is the lukewarm, tepid hatch. A few little XR2 sprinkles on it. It's got the XR2 steering wheel, white wheel trims, 5-speed gearbox, it's got the red go faster stripes. It's only got 75 horsepower.
And it weighs about the same. We're still talking about 750. We'll give it the beans in third gear at about 3,500 RPM.
Yeah. Feels pretty nimble.
Picks up
cleanly.
nicely. We've got a nice, very classic 80s Ford long sort of magic wand gear change, but though the gear lever's quite long, it's got a nice tight gate. You can say if you lean on it a bit around here, definitely hasn't got the body roll of the Renault.
No. But also then the suspension feels a little bit crashier compared to the Renault.
Yes, it's knobbly tarmac, and you can feel that come through the bodywork. But the steering, again, classic Ford, unassisted, lot of turns lock to lock,
Yeah,
but
quite
very
weird.
accurate. Just weave it from side to side. And it feels nice. It's not some old, warmed over has-been of a car. It's got much to say in its favour.
I like the interior, but you can tell, again, it's a slightly older packaging because you've got these exposed A-pillars. Door cards are very thin, basic. You've got these Fisher-Price door handles. But
Yeah.
again, to be fair, 35
Still
years old
here.
pretty much, still works.
Yeah,
it doesn't
that's
have
true.
the same interior space
No,
as the
definitely.
Renault. But then the packaging's a decade older, of course.
You know, with the Renault, where you were saying, well, it's 10 out of 10 for ride quality, it's 6 out of 10 for body control and all this stuff. I think this, a solid 7 out of 10 across the board, but nothing to really get really excited about and nothing unacceptably or poor. It's just acceptable. Ford saying, we're a company, we make money by selling cars, we're going to do it like this way. But yeah, it hasn't got the flair or the character of the Renault. It's got charm. It definitely has charm.
Well, it feels nippy and it feels agile, which would have been the whole purpose of particularly a lukewarm model like the 1.4S.
And I don't think it's ridiculous to give it an S badge because it feels nippy and responsive. You can see why it was the best seller, particularly in the British market, where the market generally quite conservative and isn't really going to go for anything technically adventurous.
You can't knock how Ford have still managed to sort of maintain the appeal of the car well over 10 years after it was first introduced.
I think they both stand up as classics. I think the very obvious Gallic charm of the Renault, I think, almost sells itself as a classic. You don't always need to make a case for it. This, I think this is so of its time. In a way, because this is a 70s car, in essence, made into the 80s, it feeling older than it actually is in a good way. This feels like a classic car. The Renault almost feels so modern that loses some of that classic appeal to me. I think I would definitely go for this over the Renault 5. I would take the Fiesta.
It feels like the world has turned upside down, Jack, because I find myself here as very much a staunch blue oval fan, and in fact when we compared a Mark II Fiesta with a Vauxhall Nova, Mr. Ruggles and I sort of concluded that he liked the Vauxhall and I preferred the Mark II Fiesta, but it is a superior bit of packaging. The
I think the Renault 5 is objectively the better car.
So you're going to take the Fiesta and I'm going to take the Renault 5, which is a bit of a turn up for the books, but what do you guys think at home? So put in the comments which one you'd rather be driving home, and yeah, thanks for watching.
Thank you.
This video is proudly sponsored by Lancaster Insurance. Give them a call on 01480 400 889 for an insurance quote on your classic car. And don't forget to click the link below to enter their latest competition.